Okay.
Good morning, Monica. How are you doing today?
I'm dancing with that jingle. That was brilliant. I'm chair dancing. It's a Friday. It's a bank holiday. I'm fabulous. I'm so happy to see you. So happy to see you.
Trust me, I'm so happy to see you too. You were the very first person I contacted when I wanted to launch this series. Unfortunately, you're also one of the hardest one to pin down, so we had to delay it a little bit. But I'm so thrilled to be able to talk to you today, because I think among all the marketing leaders that I like to work with and admire, you're probably one of the most inspiring ones. So hopefully,
that's really nice. Oh, you belong in sales. You've always been a salesperson, but no, you are now officially at the top of the Christmas list. So that's good. Thank you.
Then we can stop the interview here. That's all I wanted to hear.
Okay, bye.
Let me just give maybe a little bit of background, because I know you. Not sure everyone does. So I'll start with a short introduction. Please tell me what I get wrong. So
Okay.
you've done tons of things in marketing for the past years. You've worked for a while in Jive. You worked at RingCentral. You moved to MuleSoft, that I believe got acquired by Salesforce, and that's when you said, let's go back to RingCentral. That was a great place. You've been a marketing leader at Automation Anywhere with a common friend at the time, Riyadh. And now for a while, you've been CMO at RDoc. I don't know if you do remember, but that's something that somehow stayed in a corner of my mind. But back in 2019, you were Hot Topics 100 Most Impactful European B2B Marketing Leaders. You were on that list, which was a great thing, great list to be on. You're American-born, but very much British at this point. And you are the true MVP. So whether it means most valuable player or minimum viable product, that would be for you to tell me. But you are the true MVP as Monica Visconti-Patel. So welcome on board. Is that right? Am I missing something?
I hope you're going to do my eulogy when I die. Honestly, you're hired. You're hired. Forget my family. You're on the list. That was perfect. You know me better than my kids do. No, absolutely. God, when it's laid out like that, you think, Jesus, I'm old and weird.
Nope. That was not the objective, though. But
yeah, absolutely. I always tell my husband I married him for the P. But yeah, I was. Don't know if you're going to have to edit that part out anyway. But yeah, but.
We'll see. We'll see about that. Actually, something that's pretty amazing about you, and it's already obvious in the first 3 minutes of interview we've had. I don't know if your parents ever put coffee beans in your formula as a baby, but you have a level of energy that's simply insane. And that's not just now. I mean, I can call you at 7 a.m. in the morning or see you on a meeting at 11:30 p.m. at night. The level of energy is never different. The smile, never different, always positive. However empty the glass may be, you still see it half full. What's your secret here?
It's so funny. We have a very funny saying in my house that says, I make coffee nervous. So I don't drink coffee, believe it or not. Honestly, I think people think I'm high on something. I love people. Like, I get such a buzz from people. I also think that I grew up in a house where I was the eldest of four. And if you wanted what you wanted from my parents, you had to be very creative. You had to be my mother used to say before we answered the phone, make sure you smile before you answer the phone, because the smile would come across. I think that stuff just gets drilled in you, and then, there's no good therapist that can take it out. So it just becomes who you are. But look, trust me, for as happy as I am, there is a dark side, right? Miss Monique does make an appearance now and again. We try to keep her at bay, but you got to really push my buttons to get me there. But we're lucky. I mean, we're really lucky in life. We work in tech, we work in marketing, great lives. I mean, it's fantastic. What's not to be happy about? So yeah, I got a great family and, good people in my network like you. So yeah, I guess just lucked out this lifetime.
That is very true. We are very lucky. It's funny that your mom used to tell you to always smile before you pick up the phone, because that's not usually something I discuss on Marketing Blueprint. That's something I discuss a lot on the CX therapy, because believe it or not, that's something we actually tell good trainers, tell contact center agents, that you should smile on the phone, because people can hear when you smile, and they don't see you, but they hear that you're smiling, because it impacts the way you engage with people. So and now that we do video, we even see you smiling, which is even better.
See, my mother was a CX therapist before she knew it. So yeah,
probably was.
Yeah.
You talk about your kids. What was your dream job as a kid? Did you dream of being a CMO at some point, or did it just happen?
Do you know I wanted to be an aeronautical engineer? I wanted to go to the moon. It was either that or a veterinarian. So, I mean, how odd, right? But, it's just so weird how it all happened, because then I went to university. I studied IT. I was programming in COBOL, right? Like, this is in 1989. Not a lot of girls were out there saying, hey, I fancy programming in COBOL. Did the 4-year degree, management information systems. I loved it, absolutely loved it. But I think there was like 5 women in the entire program. And then it was the last day. It was our graduation day. And my main professor came up to me and my parents. Oh, congratulations. Really nice to meet Monica's parents. And then looked at me and said, I really wanted to tell you this for 4 years, but I haven't had the chance. You're not really a programmer. Like your code's not that great, but your personality is not going to fit in the lab. You know that, right? And my poor father had a heart attack, because education in the States is not cheap. And he's thinking, oh my God, what I got to send her back? You should consider marketing. So anyway, I moved into funny enough, you talk about CX. My first kind of real career path was, I got loaded up into this company that did contact centers. It was first generation contact centers. And back then we called it telebusiness, which was just insane. Anyway, long story short, a bunch of us young people sent out to San Francisco, worked on a really big project, and just kind of got, I just got my bearings around what IT meant, and then fell kind of into product marketing. And then it's just been this amazing journey. I was in pre-sales for a while, but, we just realized I like to talk, I like to present. I can't close a deal worth my life. I can barely close a car door, let alone an opportunity. So it was just, just really aligned with my personality. But I think marketing has just taken such a different path. I think back in the day when I started, I remember interviewing with a company, and I hope I don't offend anybody when I say this, but I went to this interview for head of marketing, and I asked the gentleman, he was the MD of this company, who plans your Christmas party? And he's looking at me thinking, I think this is a trick question. And I said, you may want to be very careful with the next words that come out of your mouth. It will depend if I stay or not. And he still had no idea. I said, let me be clear. I do pipeline. I don't do parties. So I just want us to be really clear. And that's where I kind of found that you had to be very clear about what marketing was, because there was this misconception. It was and this is not my term, this is somebody I've known in the industry's term, but the glitter and glue department. And I wanted to get rid of that stigma once I got in and realized what marketing can actually do for a company. So yeah, I had no idea I'd be here. I thought I was going to be, kind of SpaceX, NASA, first person on the moon, because you could probably hear me from space anyway. But yeah, it's been an amazing journey, but not one I expected.
You could probably hear from the moon. I would agree with that. But I think you have more positive impact here on Earth with us, so no regret.
Bless you.
I didn't know that you started as a developer, or at least that you studied that, because in this case we have a similar background. I started by studying various languages like BASIC, PHP, CSS, HTML, this kind of stuff, and I actually found that even though I don't necessarily use it on a daily basis in marketing anymore, that's definitely not something I do, at least not for my job. I do it a lot on the side because I love it. But I found that it brings rigor. And an ability to accept frustrations, because coding is you spend 5 minutes of coding and 55 minutes of debugging, at least on my end, hopefully not for every developer.
Probably more on my side, but okay.
But I find that it's an incredible school for marketing, not because marketing, you always think you're going to have to be creative, which you have to be somehow, but you also need rigor. And does that play a role? Do you feel like your studies somehow help you with your job?
Totally. Oh, absolutely. I mean, that discipline, I think when back in the day, you didn't have the tools you have today. So it was real hand cranking, going through all those lines of, do you remember the kind of the green, white COBOL paper? I mean, it does put you in a different class from other people, how you think, how you look at problems, the angle in which you come at it. So yeah, I think it gave me some great grounding, or at least unleashed some of that grounding for how I do my job today, right? Like I'm very detailed, like microscopic, which maybe to a fault, but I think it does come from a little bit of that. So yeah, I think there is something to be said. But also, it's also nice to kind of have that Girl Scout or Boy Scout badge that, I coded it at one point too, right? So you kind of feel like your place in IT is a little bit
You
more.
deserve it.
Yeah.
You've earned it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we know you did not dream to be a marketer as a kid. What about your kids today? Do you push them, or will you push them to do a marketing career at some point? Would that be something you'd be proud of, that you would enjoy? Or do you actually think they should do something different?
I think you've got to look at the personality of the person. Years ago, when the kids started going into, school, like proper school, like out of primary school and secondary school, we sat the kids down, because my husband's also in IT, and so we love tech, we love high tech, and I love high tech and I love marketing, but I work really hard. And I remember saying to my daughter, she's my firstborn, what about what mommy and daddy do? What do you think about a career like that? She said, oh, no way. I like my weekends, I like my holidays, I like my days off. Where my son, he loves it. And I think he sees a different side of it. Like, he doesn't look at the hours that go into it, but he sees the conversations and hears them, the data. Marketing is all about data, and that's what I love, right? So I think, it's not for everybody. So, 1 out of 2 is not bad. And, but I would encourage loads of people, because there's so many dimensions to marketing. So many dimensions, and I think it's still evolving to this day. And I still think there's so many, what I would say, more evolutionary ways of doing things. I mean, you listen to like Chris Walker online, and I mean, everybody's got such a different angle of looking at things now, because no one's really yet cracked the code on how to get that pipeline in, what converts. We're like surgeons, if you will, with data. So yeah, I think it's if that's what you like, I think there's such an opportunity.
What about you? If you were to stop marketing for whatever reason tomorrow, what would you be doing? It's maybe a bit late to start a career on the moon. Would you be a researcher? Would you be moving to sales? What would you be doing if you were not doing marketing today?
Yeah. I think the data scientist side of the house is something that really intrigues me. I love data. I think data has to be your friend in business. I wish I could sell. There's a lot of money in sales. I just don't know how to ask people for money. It's not in my DNA. I don't know what it is. I'd be like, you know what? It's all right. We'll do you a deal. You know what? Don't worry. It's on the house. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. But I think being a BDR is the hardest job on the planet. Everybody needs to have their toe in the water there, to fully appreciate that job is that's harder than being a mother to triplets. I have to be honest with you, but I think, I couldn't do those things. I could not. I'd love to do a strategy role, but I love the data. I love the data stuff. The whole analytical piece is just right up my alley. So yeah. And there's a few more years left, and maybe we'll get a chance to do that.
So, before you change career, right now you're a CMO. You've been for a while. You've been in roles where even if you did not necessarily have the title, you are very much of a local CMO anyway. How did you get to that point? So you've talked a little bit about your studies. You've talked a little bit about the early days of your career where marketing did not exactly mean the same thing. But what makes you different? Not everyone becomes a CMO. Out of 100 people who do marketing, very few are actually going to end up in a role where they lead all marketing teams and all aspects of marketing, because that's also what being a CMO is. You keep talking about pipe, but there are many other things that you're doing to support the pipe activity. How did you get there? What's your magic trick?
Yeah, Julian, I wish I had like this silver bullet, but I think number one, you have to really care. You really have to care for the company you work for. You have to be immensely curious. I never wanted to be in a box. I started my career with very niche companies. And then you kind of had, it's what we call in today's market FOMO. I kept looking over and thinking, oh, big company, oh my God, I would love to go there. They've got all the bells and whistles. They do have all the bells and whistles, but back in my day, they put you in a box and you worked 9 to 5 and you did 1 or 2 things and you had a great life. And I absolutely hated it. I thought, this is going to kill me. I have so much energy. I'm going to self-combust. So then I said to my husband, look, I've gone big. Do I go niche or do I go home? And he said, well, what do you mean going home? Is that like retiring? Are you kidding me? You wouldn't last 2 minutes. I said, okay, I'm going really niche. And I kind of got on that whole bullet train, rocket ship of SaaS companies where everything was really scrappy and you get to have your hands in everything. And that just suited me to a T. There wasn't anything I didn't rip open, uncover. If you don't know how the business that you're operating in operates, forget it. You just have to be so curious. I sought out projects. I never sought out money. I sought out, how can I do something really scrappy? Hopefully not crappy, but scrappy and make the impact. But I think for me, Julian, I think it boils down to a couple of things. A, you have to have that fire and desire in you. And you have to, I had to work really long hours and hard hours. I wanted to, and I had the support system to do that. I joke, I always say, I've got Hotel Patel behind me, it's Motel Patel, but it's just a lot of people in my home who just looked after everything that needed to be looked after. I couldn't have done it without that. But I also worked for some very challenging leaders, and where some people want an easy ride, I'm so glad I worked for those challenging leaders. They push you. The minute you get complacent, forget it. Career's gone. Be curious. Curiosity creates careers. It creates experienced leaders. I never wanted to say, oh, not my job, not my job. I was like, oh, broken, diving in. So, you just have to want to solution things, know how things work. And I think just by doing that, then you form an opinion and you can have a conversation at a board level, in a sales QBR, at an operating level. It says, look, guys, that's not going to work. And let me tell you why. I did it here, there, and everywhere. And this is what we found worked. And so that you're not going to learn that online. You're not going to learn that on a TEDx talk. Nothing replaces being in the trenches. And I wanted to be in the trenches. So hard work is never easy, but it pays off in the end, I hope. It did for me.
So would that be, following what you said, could I conclude that to become a CMO, you're going to have to try a bunch of different roles within marketing? You may want to do whatever, a little bit of digital, a little bit of content. You might want to try yourself at events. You might want to try different roles, be somehow generalist and not overly specialize yourself in one field. Would that be a right assumption, or there are many paths leading to where you're at right now?
Look, I think I knew what bus I wanted to be on, but I got off at a lot of stops on the marketing way and said, look, I don't want to be a specialist here, but I have to have a solid degree of knowledge about how, paid search operates or paid social. I'm not a specialist in any way, shape, or form, but I have enough information to have a conversation. Oh my God, I told you my dog was going to go off. I don't know if you could hear the barking. I'm so sorry. Okay. But you have to have, I knew I wanted to be this pipeline ninja, right? And so I just knew what that end goal had to be. And then ultimately, you have to have knowledge, maybe not, you don't want to be too generalist, but you also don't want to be the expert. But how could I sit there and lead a team with never really having done that before? Nobody was ever going to trust me. It's like, what was the old adage back many years ago in the airline industry? if they were going to put somebody in as the CEO, okay, you're going to work 3 months in baggage claim. We're going to put you on, a check-in desk for 2 months. Like, you've got to have some level of, sportsmanship there. I'm not asking you to be, balloon d'or kind of, striker here. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to talk the talk. Maybe not walk the walk so much, but definitely talk the talk. It's a fine balance.
There are like two major benefits to what you're saying. There is first credibility. If you want to lead a team and you don't even understand what it is they're doing, it's kind of hard to gain their respect. I get that. And there is also just understanding what it is they're talking about, what it is they're going through, what it is that their objectives are, and why when they tell you something is not possible, it actually makes sense because you got that picture, that understanding of what it is they're working on.
Just to unpack that really quickly, because that's the thing. I would never ask someone to do something I wasn't prepared to do myself or didn't have knowledge on. So if I've built like a video, for instance, or a landing page, okay, now I know what I need, what are the dependencies, what's the time frame. So when I go to somebody in the team and say, look, we're going to need this, like, could you do it by next week? Ooh, it's going to take a month. It's not going to take a month. It took me 4 hours. I'm going to give you a week. Like, I know what it takes to get it done, but I'm also here to help you get it done. So I can take some of that stuff on board as well. And that's the other piece. Like, you have to be in the game with the team to earn that respect. That's been my experience. I'm happy to lick the envelopes and pick up the banners and drive everything over and order the chocolates as well, because you just earn that trust capital that way. Nobody wants somebody who's just droning over in the ivory tower.
So something has changed since you began your career, especially in the past few years with the pandemic and everything. Now you manage teams that are not local, that are very much international. Actually, at RDoc, you have probably a few people in the London area, but you have people in the Nordics. I believe you guys have people in the US, across Europe. So how is remote working, for one? How is it managing a remote team? Because even if people are in the office, technically they're remote from you because you're not all in the same place. How is it managing an international team? What are the challenges? How do you do that successfully?
Yeah. Look, it's a fine balance, and you're right. Most of my people are up in Oslo. I try to visit as much as I can, but you're right. You're never ever really going to get the feel of how things operate on the ground. I mean, look, I talk to my team a lot. I talk to a lot of people around the team. Try to get that authenticity, look and feel. But I try to be as active with the team as much as possible. I mean, things like this, I think are exceptional. People have gotten used to the fact that they're going to have a remote relationship with their manager. The bonus now is meeting in person. But you just have to, and it does take a little bit longer to get there. Like I'm now at RDoc, 9 months now. So I've just had my gestational period, but it has probably taken me a good 8 or 9 months to build that trust because I am remote. And I've just had to recognize that. But it allows me to see more people more often and do more things in a remote world. But it is challenging, especially for people in their new in the career or new in the company. And I personally have not got that balance right yet. I really have not. I'm conscious of it, but I don't have the luxury of time yet. I'd love to be in the office, like New York on Monday and Oslo on a Friday and next week in London. Not there yet. So I commend anybody who has been able to master that. I have not. And my team are very patient with me. And I send lots of flowers and chocolates and cookies to make up for it. So that's my get out of jail free card.
Yeah, that I remember from you back when you were managing a local London team. You would have to do something for lunch or cake or whatever it is whenever there's someone's birthday. The bigger the team, the harder it gets. But when it's remote, okay, so you move to delivery stores and post office. Okay. So
I have. Yeah, I have. It never replaces the person in person. But what I do find is that when I am in person, my God, the time is more valuable. People cherish that time more now, which I really love. But yeah, it's I hope by the end of this year I've got that balance a little bit more right. Still working on it.
When you decided to leave your last role at RingCentral a few years ago, I inherited part of your team, and I must say, I've been gifted to work with some of the most talented people I've ever worked with.
Yeah.
How do you hire people? I mean, what do you look for? What is your method? What kind of weird question are you asking during the interview, or are you actually going with a resume, or what triggers the fact that you're going to hire this person and not that person?
Yeah. First of all, I don't interview. I interview, but I don't interview. I have a conversation, because I think what happens in an interview is people can hide behind the mask. I want to see what I'm getting, right? I'm a what you see is what you get kind of person. So I really want to understand that person, what drives them. If I can make them comfortable, and that is very important. People come on these calls, like these interview calls, and they're so stressed, and I don't think you're going to get the best of the person. I am immensely transparent about everything, because if we end up working together, I would hate for you to think I misled you about what you're joining. So I think you have to uncover the person first. And I know we run 90-minute interviews as a first interview here at RDoc. I think RDoc is RingCentral was so amazing in so many ways, and we really lucked out with finding great people. But I think now, people can hide behind some great language on wonderful CVs and AI, and that's great, and that gets you through the door. That's the gift wrapping. But my job is to unwrap the gift, and I really want to know what's inside the box, and I want people to be as open with me as I will with them, and yeah, we dig in. I want examples. Like, a lot of people well, I'm analytical. Okay, what does that mean? What does that mean? And then people will throw up an Excel spreadsheet, and I'm like, I need a story behind the numbers. So you got to, you really have to take the time, and I'll meet with people 3, 4, 5 times to see if that's the right person. And they have to make sure they can work for me, because I'm like 25 espressos all at once. I'm a lot to deal with. So yeah, I think you have to put the time in on the interviews now, a lot more than maybe in the past.
I see, unfortunately, that the clock is ticking. But there's one important question to me that I've been asking everyone who's coming on the show so far. It's not a tricky one, but if you were to talk to a fresh graduate that is starting to think about, I'd like to have a career in marketing, what would be your top piece of advice today? Or maybe what is the thing that you wish someone told you 5 years, 10 years, 20 years ago, at some point in your career? What is the thing that younger generation starting a marketing career today should keep in mind, because that's going to help them be successful?
Yeah. This is why I think BDRs make extremely interesting candidates for marketing sometimes, because they understand the market. I think that's something that a lot of people get excited about, the look, the feel, the colors, hey, we're going to run a whole bunch of email things. You begin with that customer in mind. I really don't think enough people sit down and think about that end customer. People think about the thing that they want to deploy. I also don't think that marketing people, I think they think it's about spending a lot of money. And my question is, look, you need to look at it like it's your own as well. So I think you really have to be quite, grounded and practical. I think everybody thinks marketing is so much fun. You guys get to do all these events and parties and things, but at the end of that investment, there is a pot of gold that we have to deliver back to the business. And in order to get that, you need to really understand upfront what resonates, what bite is the message working in North America versus Germany. I think really, really understanding the industry. And I think a lot of people just dive in to the tactic versus understanding the outcome. And so, my work backwards, begin with the end in mind, really. I hope that answers your question.
It's, I think, a perfect piece of advice. starting with a BDR career, at least you're going to get very thick skin if you start with that, and a strong understanding of not just what the market is. I agree with that, of course, but also how hard it is to really work a lead. Because the debate you often have between sales and marketing is this MQL or SQL? Is this lead too cold, too hot, good quality, bad quality? Having that BDR background definitely does give you a sense of how difficult it is to work a lead and how important it is to bring up the right kind of leads. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time, Monica. I had a fantastic time. Almost 30 minutes. Almost a little bit over, but thank you so much for all your time and answers. It was a pleasure having you. Hopefully that was a shared experience. That
Absolutely. I've loved this. You've made it so easy. And I wore the blue dress for the blueprint with the blue back. Look at this. We're just highly coordinated and perfect match.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Monica.
Thank you. Have a great day.